Okay, so the next part we're going to look at is market supply. So we just looked at market demand, which is summing all the individual demands together at certain prices. Similar concept for supply. We are adding up all of the individual producers' supply at particular prices. So market supply is the sum of all the individual producers' supply at each particular price point.
I'm going to need to write it down. Okay.
So, for example, we would have a market supply table that looks like this, similar to demand, but remember it's about the producers and what they are willing and able to supply. So, this is showing us Townsville's supply of energy drinks per week. At $1, firm A is willing and able to supply 1,000 units. At $1, firm B is willing and able to supply 500 units. Firm C is willing and able to supply 1,500 units. So our market supply, we add them all together. So 1,000 plus 500 plus 1,500 would give us a market supply of 3,000 at $1. So you do the same thing at each price point. As you can see, the supply is going up as the price goes up. That reflects the law of supply. The law of supply states that when the price of a good or service increases, the quantity supplied will also increase, assuming
ceteris paribus
and vice versa. So again, each firm is going to increase as the price goes up, but just by different quantities. And this is because at a higher price, it is more profitable for the firm. They're receiving more profits. So if you want to try this question by yourself, then look at the answers. The next slide shows the answers of our market supply. This column here of the totals, these are the numbers that we then take and put into our graph to create a supply curve. So if we were to draw a supply curve, we would take those totals, plot the points, and that's how we would get our supply curve.
Is it quantity supplied?
Yes, it is quantity supplied because we're talking about quantity supplied, okay? So this is from the question previously. We have our points. So they are our market supply points. Plot the points, draw the line. Remember to always put your label so it's a supply curve. We have an S. And again, remember not to extrapolate the data and go past the point because then it is inaccurate. When you're drawing your graph, you are using the data to determine how spaced out you're moving, right? If you're starting, for example, see how this goes from 0 to 3, you can do a little zigzag or 2 lines. That just tells you that you're not going from 0 to 1, you're starting at a greater number, all right? So in this case, our first number is 3, so we have a squiggled line because we're not starting from 1. Make sure each of your increments are even. You're going up in even increments on both the axes. Make sure that you've got your correct, so price, dollar sign, quantity, it's in the thousands. So 3,000, 3,500, okay? Market equilibrium occurs when we bring both the supply and the demands together. So in this case, we've got our quantity supplies equals quantity demanded. If we were to draw dotted lines where they cross over right in the middle here, that is our equilibrium point. So the way that we write this is PE. So PE stands for equilibrium price. So P stands for price, E stands for equilibrium. Same if we go down. We label this QE. This stands for equilibrium quantity. Quantity is Q, equilibrium is E. So the dotted lines are always used to identify our prices and our quantities. We then have a schedule. We get to a schedule where we have both of them already combined. So this is our market for ukuleles. This shows us the total quantity demanded at these prices, and this is our total quantity supplied at these prices. So we could take this data, plot it, and we would label this curve as our demand curve. Take this data and plot it. This would be our supply curve, okay? Then we could find the middle point, which would be our equilibrium. You could also look at this data and see the equilibrium point. So looking at this schedule, where would quantity supplied equal quantity demanded? Can you see where the crossover would be? Yeah?
15,000.
Yep.
$25.
So at $25, we have 15,000 quantity demanded and 15,000 quantity supplied. So already we know that this is where the crossover between our two curves would take place. So if we were to take that data and put it into a graph, this is what it would look like. And as we can see, $25 was our equilibrium price. 15,000 was our equilibrium quantity. So in this exam, you would either need to draw one line of market demand or market supply or both. And you'll be given a schedule. You might need to calculate those totals as well.
In the graph, if in the table, if it doesn't have like 15,000 and it crosses over randomly, do you just like guess the closest number, or will it cross over at a dot?
It will always cross over because that is where the equilibrium takes place. So that is where supply equals demand. It might not be the exact number in the graph, but most likely it will at level 1. Yeah. So you'll either need to calculate the demand of the supply or both and then put them together and then identify where this equilibrium point is. That's step 1.